Okay. Everyone hear me? All right, great. Thanks for the introduction, David. I really appreciate it. I'm extremely excited to be here. It's kind of a last-minute pinch hit. I know you saw someone else was supposed to give this case study that I was actually going to introduce, but I'm going to take his place due to some last-minute changes of plans. So what we're going to do today is go through a case study with one of our clients and partners, USAA. We had some distinct challenges to solve for this organization, and we're going to go through it step by step today of the thinking process, the implementation, and then the results. So just to start, see if my clicker works. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about USAA. It's a really interesting organization that we had the privilege of learning about as we went through this project. So mobile trends that really are driving the change and the need to focus on this as something that's absolutely necessary for your recruiting. Challenges. It's not easy to implement. It can be easier than many think, but still, there are lots of boxes to check. Solution, what we ended up going with, and how candidates used it once it was live, and then what we're thinking of doing in the future, and how we want to enhance the platform and really maximize the ROI. So first, USAA. So USAA started in 1922, and it was actually 25 Army officers that couldn't get car insurance. So what they did is they decided to insure each other's cars. So it was essentially a pool of money that they then shared if someone's car got messed up. Really cool idea. Great innovative solution to a difficult problem. From there, it's really evolved to an institution that's dedicated to the well-being of its members. Many members are in the military as well as their families. They do insurance, banking, retirement, and retirement advice. No reason to rewind. So USAA has 9.4 million members. 95% of them are actually saying that they'll be members for life, which is just incredible. $22 billion net worth, over $183 billion under management, and 24,000 plus employees. So as you can imagine, this is a solution that has to span a large organization that's also global. You see mainly a presence in the US, but there's also international presence in Frankfurt and London as well. So just a quick background on some of the USAA talent acquisition history and their outlook over the future. So USAA nearly wants to double their hiring over the next 6 years, increase their college hiring by over 50%, and increase their military hiring by 30%. So it's these requirements that really shape the strategy for understanding why mobile was important now, and it was important to start that process and implement the solution for mobile recruiting. So let's take a step back outside of the USA lens and look at some mobile trends. The first, and these are probably graphs that you've either seen or will continue to see over and over because it really starts to show something really incredible. The first is that you see consistent growth of phones. That includes feature phones and smartphones. So feature phones are the flip phones that some people still have. And of course, smartphones are Android, iOS, Microsoft, BlackBerry. And if you start looking at this chart, you're going to see that consistent growth of mobile phones is obvious, but that pink line is smartphones. And it's starting to have that escape velocity, meaning that the growth is just doubling and tripling and exponentially growing faster than any other device, and that includes corporate PCs, consumer PCs, and tablets. If we zoom in a little bit on the data, you can see that in 2011, all smartphone purchases equaled a little more than half of total PCs purchased. And in 2012, it was more than all PCs purchased in that year. I've never seen any type of adoption. We started Jibe in 2009 when social networks really started to have mass adoption, but it was nothing like what's happening globally on smartphones. Everyone's consuming data and internet on these devices, and now there's the data behind it to show you just truly how widespread this is. So some other trends. Let's zero back into recruiting. Let's look at career sites. And are these career sites going to accommodate this explosion of growth in mobile devices? And overwhelmingly, the answer is not even close. Potential Park, which is a great company, does a lot of research in the industry, and of course Jibe, just to give us a little credibility comparing us to them. We did surveys about how many Fortune 1000 sized companies had a mobile optimized career site. Essentially to us and to Potential Park, that means you didn't have to pinch and zoom. So when you visited the career site, it actually felt like it was supposed to be native on your device. It didn't look like you were viewing a desktop site. So they found 11%, we found 5%. Just really different sample sizes. But overwhelming, whether it's 80, 89, or 95% of companies aren't prepared to handle mobile traffic. it's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it is. Even from the time we did this survey at the end of 2012 till now, I'd estimate probably 15% are now prepared. So it's good to see that growth happening. Now, if we actually talk to the job seekers, do they care? Do they really want a mobile site? And that's the question we posed to them. And us and Potential Park had a very similar sample where we surveyed all job seekers. We didn't care if they were tech savvy, if they were applying to jobs on Monster or Career Builder. We polled everyone. Simply Hired polled their own users, and Simply Hired users are a little bit more tech savvy. But we found almost half of job seekers wanted to apply to a job on their phone. And what's really interesting about that data point is that if 90% of the career sites aren't even mobile, that functionality is not even available. So the idea that they have in their head that they want to apply to a job on their phone isn't something they learned or are even currently able to do. And then Simply Hired's number just, blew the roof off, 86%. That's pretty impressive. So it looks like the demand is there, the devices are out there, but the ability to do it is not. So this is really setting the stage for these trends. So now let's talk about the challenges, because it's really not just a flip switch to turn this on. So the first for USAA is their talent pool. That's changing in terms of millennials versus Gen X versus baby boomers. And as you look at that graph, the green is the millennials. You're seeing that as taking over their workforce. And if we continue to look at this data, millennials love their phones. They love their phones so much they actually use them more than they watch TV, which is astounding. And I know I'm in that group as well. So if we know that usage is there and the devices are there, then we understand what the need is. And that need for a mobile platform allows job seekers in the moment to actually apply to jobs and discover jobs. Because really, for me personally and for the job seekers we talk to all the time, it's about addressing something that they want to do right now. Whether they're in their office and they find a job that they want to apply to, whether they get an email from a friend, it's that immediacy that they want to be able to do on their phone. And that's the best part of this mobile platform, that it really creates the ability to do that and to act on what you want to do. So now if we start looking at what the mobile platform consists of and some of the requirements around it, you certainly have requirements of employer brand. It's a small screen. It can be a tablet. It can be a phone. But how do you still communicate what you need about your company, any content that you want to have around your actual mobile recruiting plan, and then the ability to then capture the applications. And that's really where I love this mobile recruiting piece, because it gets very technical. How does it work with your applicant tracking system? How does it currently work with your job application process? Is it something that you can save on a phone and continue on a desktop device? Do you have to finish it on your phone in the moment? Can you log into an existing account? These are all questions that we really want to spec out beforehand before we start implementation. So we have some basic requirements to work off of. So once we go those requirements, when you start with an application process in your ATS, there are very few that are easy to complete for large companies, and there are good reasons as to why they're not easy to complete. With the EOC requirements and screening questions that have to be asked to minimize the work of your recruiters, a job application isn't something that you're going to do in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So when you think about mobile devices, how does that transfer to that? Are people willing to sit there and go through a complete job application? And if they're not, what are you willing to do as an organization? Can you take incomplete job applications, and who can look at them, and how do you communicate with those job seekers? So these are all questions that come up as we start thinking about mobile. And then you think, all right, well, I have this ATS and I made a pretty big investment in it. Why don't they handle mobile phones and tablet devices? And unfortunately, they just don't right now. And ATSs typically haven't focused on candidate experience. They do a really good job with other things. But that front door aspect tends to be one of the last features that's implemented. So USAA decided to try and find a solution that was outside of their ATS. And they also decided to not change their job application. That makes implementation much more easy. If you have to go back to your business leaders and say, okay, we want to do mobile, and we also want to change our job application, that usually either pushes it out to 2016 or kills it in its tracks. So the solution here was very specifically focused around preserving the existing job application, but still allowing it to be consumed on a mobile or tablet. So here's the solution, at least what we started with as a solution. So they picked Jibe, which we were really excited about. And the first thing that we highlighted to USAA was it was minimal work from their IT department. And I'm happy to dive into this right now about what that means. For a mobile device or tablet device, when a job seeker visits any career site, you need to make sure that it's redirected to the appropriate site or your career site's completely responsive design. So what we're able to do is give the USAA IT department a very simple link where they send all their mobile and tablet traffic to. So is this implementing that redirect was all that their IT department had to do. There was no firewalls being open. There were no access points that were needed to HRIS systems. It was a simple redirect of traffic. So that was the first step. That eliminated a lot of hurdles. The second is the ATS. It's not something they happen to use Virtual Edge. It's publicly available knowledge. And we don't require any ATS to do any work on their end. So that's also usually a non-starter. If you have to go back to any of those companies and ask them to do change orders or special integrations or APIs, the costs become prohibitive and also the timeline becomes intimidating. So we don't require any work from the ATS. We also do something for data integrity, and this helps us get through any IT interaction, which is a real-time integration. So as the job seeker is logging in or creating an account on their phone or tablet, it's actually being done in real time on the applicant tracking system. This is technology that we developed specifically for this use. It's very similar to FaceTime. So any job seeker on a mobile phone or a tablet, when they type in on your career site, their username or their email, it's actually being streamed letter for letter into the desktop version of the ATS that faces the job seeker. So I'm not going to get more technical than that, but what that allows you to do is just have that real-time data integrity. So if you start an application on your phone, it means you can finish it on a desktop computer. If you lose connection because you're walking around or just because cell phones are a little flaky like that, that information is automatically saved in the ATS. So this mobile solution wasn't a separate repository for recruiters. It was just it was a pipeline or plumbing that allows job seekers to use their phones and tablets to get data directly into your applicant tracking system. So that was part of this solution, a big part of it. Another part is uploading your resume. This is something that's completely foreign behavior on a phone. You don't upload files. It just doesn't happen. You don't store them on your phone. So how do you actually upload a resume? And this is something that we did and we shared research with USAA. First is, what do people do on their phones? What's the natural behavior? And the number one activity, and I think we all can relate, is email. You're doing email on your phone more than anything else. And the second largest activity is social networks. So we said, okay, how do we leverage this knowledge to then make it possible to upload a resume? And the first thing we did is built a functionality that allows email to be used to upload a resume. So we found about 90% of job seekers we surveyed have a resume in their email. So all they have to do is forward that resume to an email address that's dynamically created. We then take the attachment, which is the resume, off of that email and automatically upload it into the applicant tracking system. So it's a pretty cool and easy system that allows email to be really a file upload method. So it's just about finding that resume you have, whether it's to a colleague, your mom, or a mentor. Then the second piece is LinkedIn. We decided not to use Facebook. This is something that's a client-by-client decision. There's just not a lot of information about work on Facebook in the profile right now. So we integrated with LinkedIn API to take a snapshot of the profile and create a text parsable resume from it. So this allows the job seeker at that moment in time to go out to their LinkedIn profile, take a snapshot, and upload it directly into their ATS, all from their phone. And this happens in 2 clicks and usually under 3 seconds. We also let them preview it so they know exactly what they're uploading. Now, some of the more high-tech ways of doing it are these cloud file services like Dropbox and Google Docs. They're essentially like a hard drive in the cloud. Unfortunately, job seekers really haven't adopted them yet in mass. We're seeing across our clients about a 6% adoption combined between Dropbox and Google Docs. It is growing, but it really hasn't made a dent. Email is the most popular, and we'll get into the specific data, especially for USAA after this slide. Next is responsive web design. This is something that's it's a buzzword that's used a lot, and I don't know if it's fully understood, but all it really means is that it's one URL that has a site that works on any device that's viewing it. So if you're viewing it on a mobile phone, it automatically shrinks and puts the appropriate images and content for that mobile phone. If it's a tablet, it does the same thing, and if it's a desktop, it does the same thing. So this, really kind of killed the M sites or the mobile-specific sites, because now with responsive, once you have one site, it can scale up and down based on what the job seeker is viewing your site with. And that's pretty much what responsive design is. People say HTML or reactive design. All pretty much falls under this bucket of how you approach it. And then the last is really how we support the job questions. This is, once again, client-specific, but if you have branching questions, and by that we mean if you ask someone if they've served in the military and they say yes, and then you ask them another question based on that answer. That's a branching question. Knockout questions, do you currently work at USAA? Yes. We then stop the application process and refer them to the internal apply. So what's nice about this solution that was implemented for USAA is that the ATS is the central data of record, and it's also the rules. So if questions are required, if they're knockout questions or they're branching questions, all of this gets automatically translated to the actual mobile solution. So you're not having a separate ATS or a separate platform for your mobile. It really just sits on as a really great front door. Okay, so once we build it, the question is then, are people going to come? You know they have the devices, but how do you entice them, and how do you maximize the return on your investment? And we were really excited about how USAA approached this. They had very specific campaigns in mind that were tailored to people who were using their mobile devices. And if you're going to see on here, you're going to see a couple QR codes. QR codes are essentially something you scan and it links you directly to a specific URL or web address. So these QR codes give them the ability to go right to the career site, find a job, and apply to it. Other campaigns that were included with this were also SMS or text message campaigns, which proved to be very successful. If you're marketing to job seekers on their phones, it means that they're able to apply at that moment, and they can have, in 3 or 4 clicks, the ability to view the job and then go ahead and apply to it. In a separate survey that we did of job seekers, we found out that many of them applied on their phone because they were at home on their couch watching TV. They saw a job they liked and they just kept applying, and they didn't want to get up to go to their computer. So there is a perception that people are always on the go or in between places we're on the phone, and that's really not that true, especially if you think of our own behavior. You might be on your couch on a tablet, or you're in your office on your phone because it's your own private device. So these campaigns really take advantage of that behavior, and they understand that you can reach people when they're ready to apply and when they're ready to find a job. So I was very impressed with these campaigns. These were awesome. So let's look at some candidate usage. How are people actually using the site? So USAA had an anomaly compared to our other clients. We like to share peer data while keeping it anonymous, and USAA was generous enough to divulge some of their own specific data here. So if you look at the difference between Android and Apple, that to me speaks to a difference in level of position. A lot of our clients have many frontline and retail positions, and we typically see more Android devices from job seekers and candidates for those positions, while more professional positions, typically higher paid, have Apple devices. So with USAA, we saw 67% coming in off of an Apple device, and that includes iPhone or iPad, and 33% with Android. And it was almost a flip of what we see at Jibe across our clients. So it's just important to understand those biases and differences as to why you see that data. So now we can talk about the resume upload. And in the 2 parts of a mobile job application, drop-off happens the most in 2 distinct places. The first is the ATS login or account creation, and the second is the resume upload. So there's very little we can do about ATS account creation and login. We try and make it as fast as possible, as simple as possible, let you know if you've forgotten your password and how to recover that, and that's about what we do there. For resumes, we really wanted to look and see what resumes job seekers and candidates are uploading, and you can see email just runs away with it. It's something that they're in control of because it's a resume that they have in their possession. They've sent it to someone else. They know what's in it, and it's readily available. So I know there are not numbers on here, so I can share our aggregate numbers. We see about 68% of resumes being uploaded via email across all of our clients. And with USAA, that was even higher. So we're in red and they're in blue. So that means they're closer to 70%. Then copy-paste is right behind it, which is a way to have a manual resume being put. So it's essentially a text box. So you can copy and paste it from an email, you can type it in, and you can see with USAA that's well below the average for them. And then LinkedIn, although it is a very easy solution, it's not as popular as email. Some people, some of the feedback we've gotten is that they don't have their profile in the condition that a resume is in, so it's not as complete as they'd like their resume to be, and it's also new behavior. So the question is, what does it mean if I submit my LinkedIn profile as my resume? What exactly is that? So we're getting over some of those barriers by communicating more and, of course, letting the job seeker see it. And if you do see, USAA did have a little higher than our average. And then, of course, Dropbox and Google Docs kind of trailing up the caboose there at the end. So let's keep going. So next steps. So now USAA has implemented this mobile career site that supports full mobile apply and has done marketing campaigns to drive traffic and to be able to measure that traffic to it. So the question there is, how do you then begin to optimize this experience and take the learnings that we've gotten from this site and continue to grow and build on the success? So the first thing is search engine optimization for your phone and for mobile devices. This gets a little bit more complicated than you think from the surface. The reason being is that people's jobs live all over the internet. They live on your ATS, they live on job boards, they live on front ends to your ATS like Talent Brew or Jobs to Web or those solutions. So how do you make sure it all funnels to the right site that you want job seekers to visit? And it's addressing those problems. There's no one easy solution. It really has to go around understanding where your jobs live and where they point to and how Google is crawling them. So I think when SEO started, everyone thought there was kind of a black box or a magic formula of putting tags on the bottom of your page. But the problem is your content just got spread out all over the internet, and you have to really let Google know where they should be focusing on and what jobs they should be linking to. So this is more about planning than it is about technology. So SEO is going to be a good example. And if you Google USAA jobs on your phone, you'll see why. Because you're going to be pointed to all different directions. This career site can be visited by going to usaa.com/careers, and it's live there. So that's a good way to see it and experience the site from there directly. Then redirecting to mobile sites. USAA specifically has multiple properties. They have a native iOS app for their members that they want to then link to this career site. They've got other marketing properties. So this is important for them to market all their internal sites to point to the proper mobile career site and really maximize traffic to that site. Plays into the USAA app linkage. Then internal apply. So we've seen strong data in terms of conversion and adoption from external candidates, but one of the most important things that we found our clients to do is having that internal hiring process be mobile optimized as well. Because it relies on the same ATS technology, we can leverage a lot of what's already been built for the external candidate, put it behind your firewall if necessary, and then have a mobile optimized experience to encourage your existing employees not to leave, but to find other opportunities inside your organization. And then employee referrals. How do we then translate this mobile interface not only for job applications, but for referrals? So what's nice about mobile is that it starts to solve a big problem, but it also opens up a roadmap to start addressing other issues and other ways to really enhance and bring your own internal recruiting process to give you an edge over competitors. So that's the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'd love to take some questions and answers at this point. So I think there are mics on the side if anyone wants to be a brave volunteer and start first. Sure.
Just curious about another alternative. You have email as the far and away winner.
Sure.
But when I think about how I send files myself, I often text a file because you can choose one from your phone. Have you guys considered using a text number location like they do voting on a lot of the different shows where you can simply send the file in?
So with SMS file transfer, most of the time the files you're choosing are going to be images, unless you have an Android where you're actually storing your files on an SD card, which we haven't seen a lot of adoption for. But the technology is definitely there. Services like Twilio allow us to plug into any type of SMS transmission of files. So I think for us, we would want to adopt that or test it once we saw more people actually store those files on their phone. But to your point, iBooks is something that we're noticing a lot of job seekers store their resume in now as a PDF. And they can email it directly from there, or as you said, message it from there. So I think that's a great way, and text is just a really good way to engage job seekers. So thanks for that. That's a good question.
Did USAA share any metrics on the number of applications or the percentage of applications that came from the mobile versus traditional?
So they didn't. That information was kept proprietary, but I can share you anonymous aggregate data from what we've seen. We have on this mobile platform about 11 enterprise-sized clients, all varying in terms of their types of jobs. So we see the low end of a conversion rate, meaning a job seeker starts an application on a mobile device and finishes it, being about 25%. And that low end is caused by a number of reasons. One is a very long application. Some of the companies that are on are retailers with assessments or healthcare companies with in-depth applications that can take over an hour to complete on a desktop or a phone. We make certain enhancements to speed that up on a phone. So 27% would be on the low end. On the high end, we see about 60% conversion. And these are going to be for shorter applications. They're also going to be from campaigns and sites that are really focused towards job seekers. So one of the things that will affect conversion, which we see, is if you link a career site to, let's say, your consumer app. So if I'm XYZ Bank and I have an app that my customers use and I put a careers link on there, you're going to have a much lower conversion rate because the intent usually isn't going to apply. They might be looking for jobs and not be very serious, might start one and not finish it. But when you have traffic coming directly from a career site or from Indeed or Simply Hired, you're going to see a much higher conversion rate because you have job seekers with the intent to apply. So we like to put the range on the low end of 27%, 25%, and on the high end of 60%. And if you're falling out of either of those bounds, there's probably a pretty clear reason. Just to further your point, the average job application on mobile for our clients takes about 27 minutes. So there's a lot of evidence to show that job seekers are willing to put a lot of time in on their phone, even to get through the difficult questions.
Great, this has been very helpful. But for those of us that are considering mobile, can you give us a timeline as to how long it took USAA and your firm to get this from start to finish?
Yeah, so the challenging part is, and I'm not going to speak to USAA just because I don't want to divulge any information they didn't want out here, so I'll speak in general terms that are definitely applicable. The challenge is procurement, legal, and IT clearance before the contract is signed. That typically takes twice as long as a technical implementation. So because mobile's new technology, you have to start a lot of that from scratch. So we see that on average, once we get the green light from talent acquisition, that process takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days to get through that clearance. Once that's clear from a technical implementation standpoint, we can be good in 60 days, if not less. The challenges there are typically marketing sign-off, creative, getting the right people to be okay with this site being out there as a new property. So the technical piece is pretty simple. We can fire off ATS integrations all day, but it's the logistics around it. So if you want to be reasonable, I would say from the time you start looking at a solution to the time it goes live, 6 months is probably something that's realistic. If you really want to speed it up and you have all those clearances because you're just wired in your organization, then you can do it in 8 weeks. But hopefully that's helpful.
Just adding to that question, when there are technical support issues, who provides that technical support? Does that become your internal IT folks? Is that,
Is that for the job seeker or for the company?
I guess I never really thought it out. I guess that's for me when I get the call from the job seeker that says, hey, I'm trying to apply for your job with my phone, but it's not working.
Yeah, so I'll answer both ways. So in that case, working with Jibe, you have 3 contacts. You have a relationship contact, you have an everyday contact, and you actually have a technical contact. So you can have direct access to an engineer that can log into and see any issues, diagnose them, and fix them if they exist at any point in time. And we match the SLAs of ATSs, so we have uptimes of over 99.9% and immediate response times for that. What's more interesting, I think, than that, because that to me is just enterprise technology. Like, it basically has to work all the time. But it is job seeker support. This is a new thing for job seekers. So you're going to generate more questions. They're like, well, wait a minute, how do I upload my resume from my phone? What does email mean? What does LinkedIn mean? So we can certainly help you link to information and FAQs to inform the job seeker. And we really, if that support is there to answer those questions, we can put an email inbox. We can look at trends of those questions and direct them to your existing support. So our goal is obviously not to increase the number of questions, but to increase the quality of the candidates coming through. But there's really 2 sides of that, which support it is. Thanks.
I want to piggyback off of your question a little bit. So I think you mentioned you had 11 enterprises that you've implemented for.
Yeah.
Are they measuring the percentage of applicants that are coming from the normal process versus mobile?
Not as much as we want to. That's really our goal for the second half of this year, is to start getting some comparative metrics. One of the challenges is actually knowing what your desktop application process is and how it converts from different sources. So all of that's preserved in mobile. So we pass through the, whether it came from LinkedIn or Monster, that gets passed in. We don't say it came from Jibe or it came from mobile. We want to pass the media source. So the challenge is getting the good data, and we like to do that once the candidates are live, once the clients are live.
So there's no way right now to really see if they applied from the mobile site versus the regular site. Is that what you're saying?
No, we track that. We haven't seen our clients necessarily hold the data next to it. So we can tell you all day, every applicant that came through mobile, where they started, where they dropped off, We have funnel analytics, so we can tell you that they're dropping off, 30% drop off at ATS login, 10% drop off at resume, and 5% drop off at your assessment questions. And then you can kind of optimize the application. Where we're challenged, at least in the beginning, and this is new technology, is to get the same data from desktop. So we can say, okay, this is effective A on mobile and this is effective B on desktop. And as a company, that's something that we really want to start to solve and dig into.
Hi. So since it's a more visual medium than the company ATS, do you do customization or any recommendations of shortening it, not just shrink wrapping it to a smaller size, but making it its own kind of mobile content?
Yeah. So our approach to that is we've actually created our mobile technology to be essentially like a blank canvas. And because of that, we work really well with agencies. We also work well with internal creative departments. We are not an agency, and we don't do creative. We can recommend best practices, and most of the time it boils down to simple is better. Less is more. It's mobile. So if you want people to apply to jobs, show them the jobs. But that said, there are some really good examples of designs and some awesome agencies I know even at the show that do a really good job with that. We just really help enable the technology that's there. Yeah, and mobile and tablet are totally separate animals too. So if you do it right, you have something for a smartphone and something for a tablet, and different content for both.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I'm wondering if you'd be able to share average numbers across your clients in terms of percentage of mobile applications as a percentage of overall applications in their organizations.
Yeah, so the first number there is the range of your percentage of mobile traffic to your site. And on the low end there, we're seeing 10%. On the high end, we see about 35% for our clients. Comparing that to job boards, it's actually smaller. Indeed just released a number that they said, and you'll have to excuse me if I'm a couple points off, but I think they said 55% of their traffic is now mobile. So it crossed that chasm of being more than half. In terms of percentage of total applications, we would expect it to be about 10% less than the amount of traffic that you get from mobile phones. And the reason being is that you still have to point all of your sites properly to it. So that's one of the most challenging things. Initially we thought that ATS integration and IT sign-off would be hard. I mean, it's not easy, but we get through it. What's hard is actually getting all the different job boards to point to your mobile site properly, all the different marketing sites to point to your mobile site. And going through that exercise will really maximize the return because you get the right traffic to the site. So to answer your question, just to give you a range, we'd expect on the low end 5% of total applications, on the high end 15% of total applications. Based on our projections, we see that doubling in 2014. These are good questions. Any more? Got about 12 minutes left. All right, great. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate the opportunity.